Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Live at Lunch with myself, Jenn J, Advanced Holistic Nutritionist and Hormone Health Coach. For those of you who don't know, what I do, or why I tell you what my titles are, I actually help women experience relief from period drama. And what I mean by that is the uncomfortable symptoms that so many of us as women live with every single day as a result of our menstrual cycles. And for most of us, we go through life thinking it's very normal what we're feeling, and so we really don't feel like we have any control over the symptoms we experience, except for maybe being able to hide it either through taking birth control, various medications, or even just Tylenols, Midols, that sort of thing when that time of the month rolls around. But in reality, a lot of the symptoms we experience, though they may be common, are not necessarily normal. And so they can actually be signs that you've got some hormonal imbalances going on, or, just some uncomfortable ratios of hormones going on in your body. And so what's normal for one person isn't necessarily normal for another. And that doesn't mean that you have to suffer either. So I actually just, through very simple, basic tools, education, coaching, and programming, I help women understand what's going on in their body beyond the, sex education class that we get in high school or in middle school that is basically supposed to put us through life of understanding what's happening in our body, and really it barely scratches the surface. So that's what I do, but the reason I'm here today is to tell you more, or continue this conversation that we've been having about smoothies over the last 2 weeks, and that we're going to continue having over the next 2 weeks. Believe it or not, there's actually a lot to talk about smoothies, which is insane. I would have never guessed. But today what I wanted to talk about is building smoothies for fat loss, because I see this all of the time in the wellness space that, make this smoothie, lose 10 pounds, hit your goal weight by drinking smoothies, these sort of like marketing claims, this hype around smoothie drinking. And it's not new to the industry, that's for sure. And it's not entirely wrong either. Like, you can definitely get closer to hitting your ideal weight goals by drinking smoothies. But at the end of the day, the one meal that you eat as a smoothie is not going to be the meal that moves the needle. Okay, so let's just start decompressing and unpacking this myth, right? So just like if you were to be, and I love using this example when I'm coaching with my clients, is, let's assume that 365 days of the year you ate nothing but cheeseburgers, okay? Do you think that one meal out of those 365 days, if that was a salad, if you would hit your health goals by doing that? No, of course not. You'd be, it's a step in the right direction, and it's definitely going to get you closer to your goals, or it's probably going to help you feel better for sure. I'd imagine if you were eating cheeseburgers for an entire year, you would not feel good. But it gets you closer, but at the end of the day, it's not the deciding meal that's going to change everything. And so I want you to think about it from a health perspective as well, that if you are eating healthy, that, if once a year, once a week, once a month, once a day, you have something that maybe doesn't fall into the lines of that healthy eating component, again, that's not going to throw all of your progress off track, right? So I want to start with that, right? But in the same sentence, smoothies are the same way. Of course, they're a great component to add to your daily routine to help you hit that weight goal or that health goal of some kind that you may have, but they're not going to be the end all that actually gets you there, right? So, and I think that's where, when we see a lot of, even just other coaches online, right? And I don't want to bash other coaches, but I just want you to be aware of the marketing hype around what we see. And online is a very large space, and we see a lot of hype online. So, when we see that hype around smoothies being sort of like this solution to your health problems, at the end of the day, it's not. It's a stepping stone. It's a step in the right direction. It's a component of what you should be doing overall that gets you closer, okay? So now that we've kind of unpacked that myth, let's talk a little bit about the key components that you should be considering considering when you're building a smoothie if your goal is fat loss. And if your goal is fat loss, that's okay. Now, the reason I refer to it as fat loss and not weight loss is because for most of us, our excess weight is fat. And we don't necessarily need to lose our weight. We need to lose the excess fat that our body is holding, right? And one of the reasons, not just from an aesthetic perspective, hey Dwight, how are you? Thanks so much for hanging out with me here. Not just from an aesthetic perception of wanting to lose weight and fat, but from a health perspective, I want you to consider what fat does on the body, all right? It slows us down, it increases inflammation, and it actually houses toxins. So fat in our body is a protection mechanism that our body uses in times of feast or famine, in times of stress, in times of exposure to various certain toxins, which we're exposed to every single day. If you've been following my channel for a while and we've been talking a little bit about those hormonal exposures, you know that, we are exposed to toxins from the food that we eat, the paint we use on our walls, our nonstick cookware, our beauty products, our hygiene products, all of these, like the list is endless. And you can't live in a bubble. We can't, avoid all those toxins. But what our body does is it creates this fat layer. And this fat is actually a protection mechanism so that those toxins that we're exposed to aren't penetrating into our vital organs and our bloodstream, our digestive system. It's not to say they don't still get there, because they do, but that's what that fat is for. And so when our body is going or undergoing levels of stress, we tend to retain more fat. And I don't just mean stress as like, a high stress work environment or being at home in a loveless marriage or anything like that, right? It's just our body undergoing daily life exposures, all right? And so that's what that fat actually does in the body. That's why our body retains fat. But on the flip side, even though it's a self-protection mechanism, we do actually see that it actually becomes this vicious circle whereby the more fat that we have, the more place we have for toxins to be stored. And the cycle kind of keeps going because then our body builds on more fat. So ideally what we want to be doing when we're looking at, changing our weight, it's really what we want to be doing is reducing the fat in our body, reducing those excess fat layers. And we know, in a lot of scientific studies nowadays and all the medical fields, we know that the more excess fat that a body carries, the more at risk we are of higher or very serious health conditions, right? Things like diabetes and heart conditions, respiratory issues. We get higher risks of cancer and, mental health concerns and that sort of thing. So we really do put ourselves at a very high risk when we are retaining high levels of fat in the body. So it's okay if you are in a place in your journey where you want to be losing that fat, because I know a lot of us, we have, there's a stigma around wanting to lose weight, right? Because, there's the whole love your body concept, which I'm 100% on board with. You should love your body, but it's okay to want to change it too. And it's okay to want to feel good in your body and to bring it to a level where you actually are healthy, right? So with that being said, there are some components we want to be considering when we are building a smoothie with a goal of fat loss in mind, all right? So, and this actually comes back to last week's episode where we talked about building a balanced smoothie. So a balanced smoothie is one where we have plenty of fiber, which is going to help physically make us feel full, but also helps sweep out our digestive system. It helps pick up excess toxins and bad bacteria that we've got living out there and remove them from our body. But it also helps feed the good bacteria that we have going on in there that supports good health, especially when we're thinking about that brain and gut connection whereby, one speaks to the other and when we've got this feedback loop system, right? I did a lot of conversations on gut health about 2 months ago. If you'd like to know more about that, just let me know in the comments. You can say gut health. I will invite you to our private Facebook group community, and I can tag you in some of those resources so you can learn a little bit more about that connection, because it is mind-blowing. So fiber is that really big component that we need in our smoothies. And, typically when we are eating a full bowl of food, we get that fiber by chewing the food, and it actually helps slow down that digestion process and release nutrients on a more stable level. When we're drinking it in a smoothie, some of that digestion is already starting to take place, because when we blend the food together, it actually starts to break up those fibers. So having plenty of fiber in your smoothie is really, really important. Otherwise, it's going to be like drinking juice, and while juice is great when it's an all, entirely fruit or entirely vegetable juice, it is not going to sustain you, right? So the second thing we want to consider is we're going to want some protein in there, right? So having protein in our smoothies is actually going to help us feel fuller longer, which means you're less likely to overload on a lot of food with your smoothie and then go back for more food later on. So being in that sustained energy level is really, really important to avoid overeating later on in your day or whatever time you have your smoothie. But also too is that protein actually burns a lot more calories, so we can actually help sort of boost our metabolism by having protein in our meals. And now, I think if you're currently eating in like a standard diet, you're actually probably eating way more protein than you actually need. But if you're eating a plant-based diet, and you find that you're constantly craving sweets or carbohydrates, or you're always looking in the cupboard, then you could probably do with increasing your protein a little bit, and that'll actually help keep you feel fuller longer and burn a little bit more calories, because it does take our body more metabolic processing and energy to burn through and work its way through those proteins. The last thing we want to consider is, a healthy fat in our smoothies. So having a healthy fat in our smoothies, things like nuts and seeds or nut butter, coconut milk, even an avocado would be great. These help stabilize our blood sugar levels so that we don't have these highs and lows. So we're not on that roller coaster. As soon as we get on that roller coaster, it is very difficult for us to make healthy food choices, because our body comes down into this survival mode, right? So when our blood sugar levels are nice and stable, it's very easy for us to make a healthy food choice, or even an exercise choice, or going to bed on time. Like, we can actually have all of these other choices that come to us much more easily that we make when our blood sugar levels are stable, even our moods. But when we start to drop, we're going to hit this point where our body is like, whoa, I feel so lethargic that I need something really fast. I got to come back up there because this is not good. I'm hitting that crash, right? And a lot of us, we tend to feel that around, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, especially if you've had a really big, heavy lunch or something that's lacking in those 3 components of tons of fiber, good source of protein, and healthy fat. Then we hit that dive, right? And so this is, when we're in that dive point, this is actually where a lot of people tend to lose that self-control idea that they have. And it's true, because biologically their body is saying like, whoa, I need something really fast. And oftentimes that really fast fuel source is a refined carbohydrate of some kind. So maybe you go for a granola bar or a donut, or you go for a piece of candy or some chocolate, or you go into the cupboard and you start grabbing, some crackers or some chips or something. Like, you're just kind of, and you're not satisfied either, right? Like, you eat that and then you go back for more, because you didn't actually stabilize those blood sugar levels. You just filled your stomach because you thought you were hungry. And you are hungry, just not for that kind of food. So when we have a healthy fat in our smoothie, and keep in mind, we don't need a lot of healthy fats in our smoothies. Do you guys hear that? There's like sirens around the corner. We don't need a lot of healthy fats in our smoothies, because they do actually tend to be much more calorie dense. So you really only need a small portion. Okay, so if you're, for example, if you're using nuts or seeds, just like 2 tablespoons of nuts, or even 2 tablespoons of a nut butter would be great. If you're using seeds like chia seeds or hemp hearts, you could probably get away with 3 to 4 tablespoons, because they actually contain a lot of also like higher proteins and omega-3 fatty acids, a lot more concentration of micronutrients that our body needs. So you could probably get away with a little bit more. If you're using an avocado, you know, a quarter to a half of an avocado would be plenty in your smoothie. But that's going to help stabilize you so that you're not dropping off. And what that means is that smoothie is going to sustain you probably for close to 3 hours before you begin to notice signs of hunger. Now, once you've noticed those signs of hunger, this is your cue. Don't wait. This is your cue to say, okay, what am I eating next today? What am I putting into my mouth and my body that's going to keep me sustained, stable, full, and tastes good, but still gets me closer to that goal of fat loss, whatever that looks like for you, right? So because if you wait longer, you're going to start to go on the downward side of that crash, right? And that's where we want to avoid. So can smoothies help you lose weight? Of course they can. Yes. Are they the answer to losing fat? No, they're not. They're a stepping stone. They're a component of that. And there are ways to build it so that you are getting yourself closer. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about how smoothies are killing your health goals. And that was how when we're making smoothies, when we're overloading it, we're probably actually putting way more food than we would eat traditionally if we were chewing it. And so in the same like on the converse side of using a smoothie for your fat loss efforts is that if you are trying to eat less food because maybe you eat too much already and yet you're stuffing your smoothies with 500, 600, 700 calories worth of food, you're not getting yourself any closer. So there's still a catch-22, right? That's why it's really important to have a very balanced smoothie and to keep in mind why you're making it. Are you making it to fulfill an emotional need that you want that day, that you maybe you've been craving certain foods, or maybe you turn to food for comfort? If so, give yourself a smaller serving, right? Are you using it to replace a meal? Yes. Okay, then consider if you would put all of it in a bowl in its whole food form, would you have been able to eat that in 20 to 30 minutes? No? You've got too much in there. Take some out, right? What's your ratio looking like? If you've got mostly all fats in there, hardly any fiber, and a little bit of protein, that's not balanced either. So keeping all of these components in mind is going to help you build a smoothie that will get you closer to your goals, even though it's not going to be the deciding factor of you getting there. So I hope this was helpful for you. And just remember, right, like there is no easy button when it comes to our health or our fat loss, if those are your goals, right? There's no easy button. There's no magic pill. There's no simple solution. The simple solution is really just that you eat clean, most of the time, well-balanced meals. That is the answer. Like everybody's looking for an answer. That's it right there, right? And then of course there are ways to optimize that, but that's an entirely different conversation, and it's actually really based personally on you and your metabolic processes and what you can commit to in other areas of your life and your stress levels and your hormone levels, right? So if you're like me and you've got some hormonal imbalances happening and you're struggling to lose fat, then those are other issues, underlying issues that need to be addressed in order for you to get there. And if that's the case, I encourage you to just reach out to me. We can always have that conversation and see what that looks like for you, right? So if this was helpful, remember to hit those hearts for me. I really appreciate you hanging out with me. I see we've had quite a few people hanging out today with us, which is great. I always appreciate the audience and having you guys hang out. And of course, I always hope that what I share with you is valuable and helps you in some way get closer to your health goals or motivates you in some way. Tomorrow, I don't even know yet what I'm talking about. I wrote down everything I wanted to share with you guys this month on smoothies. So I don't even know what it is yet, but it'll be great, I'm sure. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. Have yourselves a wonderful afternoon. It looks like in my area, it's going to be a fantastic one. So I'm looking forward to spending my afternoon outdoors with my lunch and getting a little bit more work done. Bye, everybody, and I'll see you guys all again tomorrow.